Today we continue our sermon series, Far from Perfect, From the Mess Comes the Messiah. And I invite you to take the Bible you brought with you or one that is near you in the pew. Maybe you've got one on your phone or your tablet. There are some over on that little holder over there. The red books are Bibles if you're looking for them. And the Gospel of Matthew will be about 3/4 of the way through if you're using a paper Bible. And we are going to be in Matthew, the 2nd chapter today. Again, if you've got it on your phone or your tablet, that is super as well. Matthew chapter 2. If you're looking to read the Christmas story from the scriptures, maybe for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, you will find it in Matthew 1 and 2, Luke 1 and 2, and John chapter 1. Matthew 1 and 2, Luke 1 and 2, John chapter 1. Those are the gospel accounts of the coming of the Messiah. On the screen, this smiling face is my friend Ben. Ben is a grad of Duke Divinity School, and ordained an elder in Full Connection last year in 2023. And he began his current appointment a few months ago at the First United Methodist Church of Bonita Springs here in the Florida Conference. Some of you are going, oh, I know where that is. Yes. Ben is passionate about justice. He's very gifted in church growth. And he has a fantastic sense of humor that you can probably tell from his great smile. He is single. I feel like I'm, like doing his online dating thing right now. But the reason I bring you Ben's smiling face and self is that a little over a week ago, Ben announced to his congregation and to Facebook that he has an invasive melanoma and that he was going to need immediate surgery. And so in this announcement, Ben, because Ben is Ben, talked about what was going on in his life, but he then talked about how he was feeling kind of a connection to the Christmas story through what was going on in his life. And the word he kept using over and over again was the word disruption. And I had never associated that word with the Christmas story, but it is all over the Christmas story. And so you have the angel Gabriel coming and disrupting Mary's life, and Mary saying yes to the disruption. Yes, I am the servant of the Lord. Yes, I will bear the Messiah into the world. And then, of course, the disruption comes into Joseph's life. And Joseph is originally, like, I don't know about this. And then eventually Joseph gets an angel too. And Joseph says yes to the disruption in his life. And then, of course, you have the Roman census that is going on at the time, which is disrupting everybody's life, disrupting it on purpose as a show of power. And Mary and Joseph make their way to Bethlehem, and they find there is no space for them in the guest house, and so they wind up having the baby where the animals stay, probably a cave. Caves all over Bethlehem, and that's where they would store the animals. So, fun fact. And so then, disruption. The poor shepherds are out watching, the flock in the middle of the night, and everything is probably, they've probably gotten everybody peaceful for the night, and they're probably settling down, and all of a sudden, angels, disruption, and the angels come, and we bring you tidings of good joy for all people, and unto you is born this day, city of David, a Savior, and the shepherds are like, what? And then they disrupt what's going on to go see the baby, and then they have to go back and they start telling people. Anyway, it is disruption. And today, we are going to read of more disruption in Matthew chapter 2. And if you have never read the entirety of Matthew chapter 2, it is the scary part of the Christmas story. We get the villain of the Christmas story in Matthew chapter 2. And so Ben's diagnosis, I keep thinking about Ben, and I keep thinking about many, many others that are struggling right now and the stuff going on in our world. And sometimes disruption is joyous, you know. To you was born this day a Savior, go see the baby, you know. But sometimes the disruption is dangerous. You know, Ben's cancer is dangerous. And the situation in Matthew chapter 2 is dangerous. So, Matthew chapter 2, beginning at verse 1. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men, another great word for that is magi. Magi is a great word. It's tied to the word magician. But they were wise people. They studied the stars, interpreted the stars. So they had a little science in them, a little astrology in them. You know, it was part of their culture. They lived far away. Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." They have come a long, long way. When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. More about that in a bit. And calling together the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet," in this case it's Micah, "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them exactly the time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." Liar, liar, liar. And so the wise ones make their way into town, and their entourage is large enough that it captures the attention of the leadership. And the leadership at this time is Herod the Great. Herod, who is named King of the Jews. We have a lot of archaeological evidence for Herod. We have a lot of written evidence for Herod. He reigned in the Holy Land for 37 years. A huge amount of time. Herod was the first king of the Jews, quote, 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 to rule all the promised land since King Solomon. It'd been that long since it was united under a single king. He was appointed king by the Roman Senate, and he overthrew his predecessor with Rome's help. So he came to power in a coup. Herod is a brilliant builder. Brilliant. He had many, many projects that we can still see remnants of. He completed the renovation and expansion of the temple in Jerusalem. He developed and expanded the port and community at Caesarea Maritima on the Mediterranean Sea, making it the Roman seat of power for the region and making Herod super rich from trade. When Pilate was not in Jerusalem for the High Holy Days, Pilate was in Caesarea Maritima. He built and renovated over 10 palace fortresses with multiple stories. This is in the ancient world. Multiple stories, running water, and swimming pools. And he used his power and used his influence to stay in power. Herod was not just brilliant, he was brutal. He was brutal, he was dangerous, he was hard-hearted, he was paranoid. And anyone who threatened to disrupt his power was taken care of mafia style. They were murdered. And this included multiple family multiple family members. It included a wife, it included a mother-in-law, it included a couple of brothers-in-law, it included 3 of his children. And so, this is Herod the Great. This is Herod, king of the Jews. And so it makes sense that the wise ones, they believe a new king of the Jews has been born. They're going to go to a palace because kings are born in palaces. And so they go see Herod, who is the king, because kings are born to kings. So they tell this news. Herod is shocked. Herod is frightened, and all Jerusalem with him because he is dangerous, especially when he's frightened. And so he did not welcome this news. He did not welcome this disruption. And so he starts asking around, okay, where is this kid supposed to be born? Is the kid supposed to be born in Bethlehem? That's what the prophet Micah says. Okay. So he goes, so wise guys, go find the child that I too may come and pay him homage. Liar. And so, if you continue reading in Matthew chapter 2, the wise ones do find the child. And the wise ones lay down their gifts and bow before the child. And then they leave another way home. They avoid going back to Herod because they're wise and they're open to the direction of God. And so Herod is angered that they did not come back and make his life simple. And so what does he do? He commits genocide. He goes to Bethlehem and has all the babies 2 years old and under slaughtered. It's called the Massacre of the Innocents. And there is weeping and wailing in Bethlehem. I keep thinking, how will we use the power that we are given? Right? Ben has power. Even though he is going through this cancer journey, he has power. He's writing beautiful things on Facebook and continuing to fulfill his calling to preach and to minister. Herod decides to use his power as a power grab and to kill anyone who gets in his way. And then we have Joseph. Joseph, who seems to have no power, but actually does. Doesn't that happen to us as well? Sometimes we know we have power. We know we have power because we're the head of a family or the head of a business or high up in a corporation or maybe in the military, and we have rank or political office or whatever it is. Sometimes there's this kind of noticeable thing where you have power. And then there are all of these ways where we think, well, I have absolutely no power, but you do. You have agency, you have influence. Joseph has this as well. But when you look at the two of them, you've got like Herod the Great, and you've got Joseph the who? Way down here. There is not a large historic record for Joseph. He's only mentioned in 16 verses in the Bible. 16. And Joseph never speaks. Joseph is silent in the scriptures. We only know his stories and know his heart through his actions. And sometime after Jesus turns 12, Joseph just disappears from the story. We presume he died, but we don't know when and how, and he just disappears. Joseph is a builder like Herod. Herod does these huge, big, elaborate projects. Joseph is a carpenter. Some folks think he was a stonemason. Others think that he was a woodworker, that he made doors and tables and farm tools and all of those things. Herod had all of this power and wealth, and Joseph was poor. We know this from the offerings that they make in the temple. They're the poor folks' offerings. We know this because Joseph owns no land. He's a tradesman. He's not a farmer. He's not a vineyard worker or a vineyard owner or a fisherman. No land. And so the coming of Jesus was disruptive to his life, even dangerous. But Joseph was righteous, in right relationship with God and others and with himself. And Joseph is so loyal, so loyal. He is open to these disruptions where Herod is hard-hearted and closed down. He is open to the invitations, and he is absolutely protective of Mary and baby Jesus. He's protective of them before Jesus is even born. He makes sure there is shelter for the birth. And the wise ones come, and the wise ones give gold and frankincense and myrrh and who knows what else, and bow down before him. And Joseph gets another dream, and they take those gifts and they flee to Egypt before the massacre. Joseph has power, and he uses it. How will we use our power? Ben wrote this last night. Last night was the longest night of the year, the winter solstice, December 21st. Had a beautiful service commemorating the longest night last night. And he wrote this. He says, I see the reason we mark the longest night. It's twofold. First, a powerful reminder to those struggling with loss that the world God chooses to enter into, not just once upon a time, but still today, is one where darkness is present, is the world you know and may be experiencing in particularly poignant ways. Second, the longest night is a realignment for us all. An adjustment that speaks as loud as necessary that our faith is not one that pretends. Our faith is not one that ignores brokenness or darkness. Our faith is not of heads made worthless, buried in the sand. It is a faith that says the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. How will you use your power this holy season to bring light and hope and peace and life? Many of you are already doing it. Continue. Many of you are feeling the calling to do it. Follow the call. Say yes. Many of you are saying, oh, I'm too this, I'm too that. I can't. You can. You can.